She entered the hangar discreetly, wearing simple clothes and a curious look in her eyes. She only wanted to see up close the plane she dreamed of offering to her company's employees. But it took just 1 minute to hear, "Ma'am, this is only for the elite." The salesman laughed, turned his back, and made the biggest mistake of his life. What he didn't know was that this modest woman commanded one of the largest executive aviation companies in the country, and minutes later, she made a phone call and bought the entire fleet. Subscribe now to the channel and see how the world turns when arrogance meets true power. Tuesday morning began like any other at the Blue Sky Executive Aviation Hangar, located at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. The place was known for serving the American business elite, bankers, agribusiness magnates, and celebrities who preferred the exclusive comfort of private aircraft to the commotion of commercial flights. Ashley Davis arranged her impeccably straightened hair while observing her reflection in the reception mirror. As a receptionist for the company for 5 years, she knew how to identify, just by the way they walked, who was a potential client and who was merely there to admire the unattainable luxury. Her high heels echoed across the imported marble floor as she prepared the premium coffee that would be served to the executives expected that morning. "This Greg Miller is late again," she complained to the young salesman Tyler Williams, who nervously adjusted his Armani tie. It was his first month at the company, and the pressure to close sales consumed him. The boss already warned that if he doesn't meet this quarter's target. The phrase was interrupted when the automatic glass door opened, revealing not the expected executive, but a woman of simple appearance. Eleanor Johnson entered the establishment with calm steps, wearing already faded thick fabric pants, a plain cotton shirt without any visible logo, low sandals, and carrying a handcrafted straw bag with evident signs of use. In her hand, just a simple notebook and a promotional Bank of America pen. Ashley and Tyler exchanged quick glances. The receptionist forced an embarrassed smile before approaching. "Good morning. Are you looking for the cleaning company?" "It's in the next block," she said in a falsely polite tone but loaded with condescension. Eleanor, with her 58 years and eyes that carried a serenity acquired through decades of experience, smiled softly. "Good morning. Actually, I'd like to see the available aircraft models," she replied, with an accent that mixed traces of rural Tennessee, where she was born, with the New Jersey pronunciation acquired in her 30 years in the metropolitan area. Ashley widened her eyes and held back a laugh. She looked at Tyler, who now seemed visibly uncomfortable. "You want to see the jets?" she asked, emphasizing the last word as if it were an incomprehensible concept for that simple woman. "Yes, please. I'm interested in models with intercontinental range." Ashley hesitated, looking around as if searching for a hidden camera. Realizing that none of the experienced salespeople were available at that moment, all busy with real clients, she made a discreet gesture to Tyler. "Tyler will accompany you," she said before whispering to the salesman. "Show her anything, it must be just curiosity. The Tyson Foods people will be here soon." The young salesman, who had graduated in business administration just 2 months ago and dreamed of million-dollar commissions, sighed deeply. He led Eleanor to the most remote corner of the hangar, where the oldest and least luxurious models were displayed. "Are you here on a day trip or—" he tried to probe as they walked through the space. "I'm here on business," Eleanor replied simply. "I need to evaluate different options to make a well-informed decision." Tyler smiled condescendingly. Of course. Well, these are the more accessible models, let's say." He pointed to a smaller jet, already discontinued. "This one costs only $12 million. It's practically a bargain in the world of executive aviation," he commented with barely disguised irony. To his surprise, Eleanor approached the aircraft and began asking specific technical questions. "What's the range of this model? And the fuel consumption per flight hour? How does the preventive maintenance system work? Do you have partner hangars in Europe and Asia?" Disconcerted by the unexpected technical knowledge, Tyler tried to answer as best he could, still treating the questions as mere curiosity. With each new question from Eleanor, his impatience increased. "Are you researching for some school project or something?" he finally asked, not hiding his discomfort. "I'm researching for an acquisition," she responded calmly. noting numbers in her notebook. Tyler couldn't contain a chuckle. "Look, ma'am, what was your name?" "Again?" "Eleanor Johnson." "Mrs. Johnson, these jets are for the business elite. Each model here costs between $15 and $100 million. The annual maintenance of a jet like this equals the price of several apartments, not to mention the operational costs, fuel, crew." As he spoke, a group of executives crossed the hangar. Ashley immediately ran to receive them with coffee and broad smiles. Tyler observed the scene with evident desire to be there and not wasting his time. "I understand your concern," said Eleanor, interrupting his daydream, "but I'm really interested in a robust model with international range and minimalist yet functional interior." The salesman crossed his arms, completely losing patience. "Ma'am, this type of jet is only for the elite," he stated categorically. "Perhaps you're confusing this with aircraft rental. If you want to take a special trip, we have partners who offer that service." Eleanor closed her notebook, looked around the hangar one last time, and smiled softly. "Thank you for your time, Tyler. It was enlightening." She put the pen in her bag. "I'll come back tomorrow to talk more calmly." "Sure," he replied, relieved to get rid of that situation. "We'll be here." As he accompanied her to the exit, Tyler didn't imagine that this modest-looking woman had just inspected her future acquisition. Nor did he suspect that Eleanor Johnson, the soft-spoken lady in simple clothes, was the new corporate logistics director of Horizon Group, an American conglomerate valued in billions, with operations on 5 continents. That night, while Tyler celebrated with friends the closing of a small sale to a businessman from upstate, Eleanor participated in a video conference with the board of directors of Horizon Group. On her laptop screen, 9-digit figures were being discussed for the complete renewal of the company's aircraft fleet. "So, Eleanor, what's your assessment of Blue Sky?" asked the group's president. "Interesting," she replied thoughtfully. "I'll return tomorrow for a second visit. I believe we'll all learn a lot from this experience." Wednesday dawned busy at Blue Sky. Richard Parker, the company's CEO, had arrived earlier for an important meeting with investors. The 45-year-old executive, known for his explosive temperament and attachment to formalities, demanded that everything be impeccable. His perfectly cut Italian suit matched his handmade leather shoes, an image he meticulously cultivated to impress clients. "Ashley, cancel all morning appointments," he ordered the receptionist. "Has the Tyson Foods team confirmed they're coming to make the final inspection of the citation?" "Yes, sir. Mr. Miller called and said he'll be here at 11 a.m. Richard nodded, satisfied. The sale of that jet would represent the biggest commission of the month. As he walked to his office, he passed Tyler, who was organizing catalogs at reception. "Any news, rookie?" he asked without much interest. "Nothing. Relevant, Mr. Parker. Just a curious old lady who showed up yesterday wanting to see jets." Richard raised an eyebrow. "An old lady?" "Yes, a simple elderly woman. I think she was just wanting to know the place. She said she'd come back today." The CEO rolled his eyes. "Don't waste time with curious people, Tyler. Focus on real clients. Time is money in this business." The conversation was interrupted when the glass doors opened. Eleanor entered, wearing the same simple clothes from the day before. This time, however, she wasn't alone. Behind her walked 3 formally dressed people, a middle-aged woman with a tablet in her hands, and 2 men in discreet but visibly expensive suits. Ashley straightened up immediately, feeling that something was wrong with the situation. Tyler, in turn, paled as he recognized the lady he had treated with disdain the day before. "Good morning," said Eleanor calmly. "I'd like to speak with Mr. Richard Parker, please." Before Ashley could respond, Richard stepped forward, intrigued by the presence of those people. "That's me. How can I help you?" One of the suited men took a step forward and extended a business card. "Edward Mitchell, Financial Director of Horizon Group. This is Dr. Cynthia Sanders, our legal advisor, and this is Dr. Paul Foster, Acquisitions Consultant." Richard took the card, suddenly alert. Horizon Group was one of the largest business conglomerates in the United States, with businesses ranging from agribusiness to information technology. And this, continued Edward, indicating Eleanor, is Mrs. Eleanor Johnson, our corporate logistics director. The silence that followed was almost palpable. Tyler felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Ashley dropped the clipboard she was holding. Richard, meanwhile, was trying to process the information. "We've come to discuss the acquisition of 6 aircraft for our corporate fleet," explained Eleanor, with the same serenity as always. "As I mentioned yesterday to your salesman, we're interested in models with intercontinental range." Richard's eyes slowly turned to Tyler, who was now completely pale. "Naturally," continued Eleanor, "we would like to see all available options. Not just the models for the elite, as your employee kindly pointed out yesterday." Edward handed Richard a folder. "These are our technical specifications and our initial proposal. The budget approved by the board is $480 million for the purchase and long-term maintenance contracts." The CEO of Blue Sky, a man accustomed to dealing with high-value negotiations, for the first time in years, seemed truly disconcerted. He opened the folder with slightly trembling hands, seeing figures that would represent the largest contract in the company's history. "It's an honor to receive you," he finally said, composing himself. "Please come to my office where we can discuss with more privacy. May I offer you some coffee?" "That won't be necessary," replied Eleanor. "Your receptionist already made it clear yesterday that the premium coffee is reserved for important clients." Ashley felt her face burn with shame, remembering the exact words she had said to a colleague when Eleanor was nearby. "Let's get straight to the point," continued Eleanor. "We have a quite busy schedule today. After here, we'll also visit Golden Wings and America Jets." Richard swallowed hard. They were his 2 biggest competitors. The group headed to the main meeting room, leaving behind a reception in complete silence. Tyler remained motionless, trying to process what had just happened. His dreams of million-dollar commissions were literally walking out the door, accompanied by the lady he had treated with condescension. In the meeting room, Richard desperately tried to repair the damage. He presented the most luxurious models, detailed the premium services offered by the company, and guaranteed special conditions, but the atmosphere had already been established. "Let's be direct," said Edward, after 2 hours of presentation. "Blue Sky's technical proposal meets our needs. However, we have serious reservations about the company's organizational culture." "What do you mean?" questioned Richard, confused. "Horizon Group values not only technical quality, but also relationships, based on respect," explained Cynthia, the legal advisor. "The treatment given to Mrs. Johnson yesterday raises doubts about how we will be served after the purchase." Eleanor, who had been silently observing during the entire meeting, finally spoke. "Mr. Parker, I started my career as a janitor in a transportation company 40 years ago. I worked during the day and studied at night. I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and was the first person in my family to enter a university. I learned that appearances deceive, both for good and for bad." The room fell silent as she continued. "Yesterday I decided to visit your company without prior identification because I wanted to see how you treat ordinary people. Not people with corporate cards or important last names, but simple folks. The result was educational." Richard ran his hand over his face, visibly disturbed. "Mrs. Johnson, I sincerely apologize for what happened. I assure you it doesn't reflect the values of our company." "Perhaps not the stated values," she replied, "but it certainly reflects the practiced culture." Edward intervened. "Still, we're willing to proceed with the negotiation, but with a special condition." The CEO of Blue Sky leaned forward, anxious. "Any condition. 30% of the commissions generated by this sale will be allocated to a training program for all company employees on humanized service and combating unconscious biases," explained Cynthia, opening an addendum to the contract. "The Paudis program will be audited quarterly by our team." Richard hesitated for a moment. That would mean a considerable reduction in immediate profit. On the other hand, losing the contract would be disastrous. "We agree," he finally said. "Great," replied Eleanor with a slight smile. "We have a preliminary agreement then. Our engineers will come tomorrow for technical inspections." When the Horizon Group team left the hangar, the impact of the visit spread quickly. Tyler, sitting alone in the sales room, couldn't hide his tears of frustration and shame. Ashley was in the bathroom, trying to compose herself after the shock, and Richard, locked in his office, was already drafting an urgent communication to all employees. That same afternoon, news of the biggest sale in the history of Blue Sky executive aviation spread through the market. But in the internal corridors of the company, another story was being told, that of the simple woman who taught a lesson about respect and appearances. Meanwhile, at Horizon Group headquarters, Eleanor reviewed the contracts in her office. A black and white photograph adorned her desk, her as a young woman in a janitor's uniform, next to her mother who worked as a housekeeper. A constant reminder that a person's true value is not in what they wear or own, but in who they are. 3 months passed since the agreement between Blue Sky and Horizon Group. What initially seemed like a simple commercial transaction transformed into a profound cultural revolution within the executive aviation company. The first jet had been delivered with great ceremony, but at Eleanor's insistence, without press coverage. "We're not seeking spotlights, but results," she had explained to the Horizon Group marketing team, which had suggested a big event for publicity. On that Friday morning, the Blue Sky hangar looked different. The walls, previously decorated only with photographs of luxurious aircraft, now also displayed the company's new values, printed on elegant panels. Respect is independent of appearances. Excellence for all. Humanity before status. Richard Parker walked nervously through the office. The training program required as part of the contract was approaching its first quarterly evaluation, and he feared the results. The investment had been considerable, not only financial, but especially emotional for the entire team. The Horizon. "Group consultants arrive in an hour," announced his new assistant Julie, a young woman from a humble background who, until 3 months ago, worked as a cleaning assistant in the company. Julie's promotion was one of the first changes implemented by Richard after the incident with Eleanor. "How's the mood in the team?" he asked, trying to disguise his anxiety. "Honestly, better than we expected," replied Julie with sincerity. That was another important change. Employees were now encouraged to express true opinions, not just what bosses wanted to hear. Julie hesitated for a moment before continuing. "There's something I think you should see before the meeting." She led Richard to the employees' break room, a space that was previously reserved only for high-performing salespeople and was now open to all staff. On the wall, an improvised mural displayed dozens of small colored cards. "What is this?" asked Richard, adjusting his glasses to read better. "A project that started spontaneously," explained Julie. "We call it Stories of Change. Each card tells a personal experience of someone who changed their perspective in recent months." Richard approached and read some of the cards. "I realized I judged a client by his southern accent. He ended up buying 2 jets. I always thought transgender people wouldn't have the purchasing power for our products. A trans client just signed a 5-year maintenance contract. My own grandmother would have been poorly served in this company before the changes. This shames me and motivates me." Richard swallowed hard, touched by the honesty of the confessions. In the corner of the mural, he recognized Tyler's handwriting on a larger card that said, "I almost lost the biggest opportunity of my life by judging someone by their appearance. Never again." On the other side of the hangar, Tyler organized his desk. The last few months had been difficult for the young salesman. After the incident with Eleanor, he had almost resigned, consumed by shame. Richard, surprisingly, had convinced him to stay. "You made a mistake that we all make daily, except yours was exposed," the CEO had said on that occasion. "Now you have 2 options, run away or learn and grow from it." Tyler had chosen the second option, unexpectedly becoming one of the biggest enthusiasts of the new training program. His personal experience of unconscious prejudice had become a powerful case study in the training sessions. He flipped through his learning diary, a practice recommended by the hired consultancy. In it, He had recorded his reflections during the transformation process. Week 1. I still can't look colleagues in the eye. The shame is paralyzing. Week 3. I started to notice patterns in my behavior. I always associated success with a certain appearance. Week 6. Today I attended to a gentleman in flip-flops and shorts who bought a jet for his technology company. He thanked me for not judging him. Ashley, in turn, had tears in her eyes as she observed the newly installed plaque at reception. Welcome to Blue Sky, where all dreams have value. The former receptionist now led the customer service team after going through an intense professional recycling process. You're thinking about her, aren't you? Asked Sophie, a new receptionist hired during the restructuring process. Yes, confessed Ashley. Sometimes I wonder how many opportunities I've missed in life by judging people by what they wore or how they spoke. At least you had the chance to learn, consoled Sophie. Many people go through life without that insight. Ashley nodded, discreetly wiping away a tear. You know what impresses me most. She could have humiliated us, could have demanded my dismissal, could have made a scandal, but instead she chose to use the episode to transform an entire company. It's almost time, announced Richard, gathering all employees in the central space of the hangar. I want to thank everyone's effort. In recent months, regardless of today's evaluation result, we are already a better company. He paused, looking at each face in the room before continuing. When we signed that contract with the training clause, I confess I thought it would just be an additional cost, a bureaucratic requirement to close the deal. I never imagined it would change the DNA of our company. The Horizon Group cars arrived punctually at 10 a.m. To everyone's surprise, in addition to the expected consultants, Eleanor Johnson disembarked personally, wearing her usual simple style, thick fabric pants, a plain shirt, and a straw bag already known to everyone. Good morning, she greeted, with her serene smile. I hope I'm not disrupting the schedule. Not at all, Mrs. Johnson, replied Richard, visibly nervous. It's an honor to have you with us again. Before entering the meeting room, Eleanor stopped in front of the Stories of Change mural. She read some cards in silence, her face lighting up with a discreet smile. This mural wasn't in the reports, she commented to Richard. It was a spontaneous initiative from the employees, he explained. It started with just 3 or 4 cards and now, well, you can see. Eleanor nodded, satisfied. True changes are those that continue happening even when no one is watching. The entourage was led to the main meeting room, where the presentation of the training program results was prepared. For 2 hours, Richard and his team exposed the implemented changes, new service protocols, revised hiring criteria to promote diversity, anonymous feedback channels for customers and employees, and stories of personal transformation. Tyler, overcoming his nervousness, presented the commercial results. Surprisingly, sales had increased by 23% in the quarter, even with the slowing economy. We discovered that many potential clients avoided seeking us out due to intimidation, he explained. Successful people, but without the traditional profile of the executive jet buyer, felt out of place in our previous environment. He projected a slide with testimonials from new clients. I entered 3 executive aviation companies before. In 2, I was ignored. In the 3rd, they asked if I was delivering something. At Blue Sky, for the first time, I was treated as a potential client from the first moment. Technology sector entrepreneur. As a black woman in a leadership position, I'm used to being underestimated. The experience at Blue Sky was different. No one questioned my financial capacity or asked me to talk to my boss, multinational CEO. When the presentation ended, everyone looked expectantly at Eleanor and the consultants. After a few seconds of silence, she finally spoke. You understood the essence of the lesson. The tension in the environment instantly dissipated. Discreet smiles appeared on the faces of the employees as Eleanor continued. True transformation doesn't happen by decree or fear of punishment. It occurs when we genuinely understand the impact of our actions and choices. What I see here today is not just contractual compliance, but an authentic change in mindset. The consultants then presented the official report, confirming the program's approval. The retained commissions would be released according to the agreement. But what happened next caught everyone by surprise. Horizon Group would like to propose an additional partnership, announced Eleanor. We would like Blue Sky to share its cultural transformation experience with other companies in our business ecosystem. Richard frowned, confused. What do you mean? Your company has experienced a journey that many organizations need to make. You transformed a potentially destructive incident into an opportunity for growth. That has value. We propose that Blue Sky develop with our consultancy a training program for other companies. The proposal was unexpected and revolutionary. An executive jet sales company would also become a reference in organizational culture transformation. The paradox escaped no one in the room. It would be an honor, replied Richard, still assimilating the potential of that opportunity. During the lunch that followed the meeting, Richard found a moment to speak privately with Eleanor. May I ask a personal question, he requested. Of course, she replied, serving herself water. Why didn't you demand my dismissal or Tyler's after that day? It would have been completely justifiable. Eleanor set the glass on the table and reflected for a moment. Richard, in my life, I've learned that humiliating someone can provide momentary satisfaction, but transforming someone generates a lasting impact. Firing you or Tyler would have closed the matter, but it wouldn't have fundamentally changed anything. You would be replaced by people with the same prejudices, formed in the same system. She looked out the window, observing the movement of planes on the runway. Besides, who am I to judge? I also have my prejudices, my limitations. The difference is that I had people in my life who, instead of punishing me for my mistakes, gave me the chance to grow through them. After the formal meeting, while the consultants talked with other employees, Eleanor asked to speak privately with Tyler. The young salesman, still uncomfortable with the memory of the first encounter, accompanied her to a quiet corner of the hangar. Do you know why I chose to come back the next day even after the treatment I received? She asked softly. Tyler shook his head negatively. Because I saw something familiar in you. Many years ago, when I tried my first formal job after years working as a janitor, a manager treated me exactly as you treated me. He didn't see potential. In me, just my simple appearance, my accent from someone who grew up in a tough neighborhood. She paused, looking through the hangar window at the New Jersey sky. That manager lost the opportunity to grow as a person and as a professional. I didn't want you to miss the same opportunity. The words deeply affected Tyler. In recent months, he had transformed, but still carried the weight of shame from the incident. Thank you, he murmured with a choked voice. You taught me more in one day than I learned in years of college. Eleanor smiled. Don't call me ma'am. I prefer to be called by my name. Titles say nothing about character. She took a small envelope from her bag and handed it to Tyler. This is an invitation. Horizon Group is starting a mentoring program for young professionals. I believe your experience would be valuable to others. Me? As a mentor? Tyler seemed incredulous. Who better to talk about transformation than someone who has lived it intensely? Sometimes our greatest weaknesses, when overcome, become our greatest strengths. At the end of that day, when all visitors had already departed, Richard gathered his team again. The mood was one of contained celebration, a mixture of relief and pride in the path traveled. Today marks not only the success of a project, but the birth of a new blue sky, he declared. And it all started with a lesson in humility that we will never forget. Ashley raised her hand, asking permission to speak. I'd like to propose something. What do you think about instituting Eleanor Day in the company? One day a year when all of us, including directors, will work dressed in the simplest way possible to remind ourselves that appearances don't define value. The suggestion was received with enthusiastic applause. 2 weeks later, a woman of simple appearance entered the Blue Sky hangar. She wore modest clothes and carried a small cloth bag. Ashley, who was at reception, immediately stood up and walked to her with a genuine smile. Good morning, welcome to Blue Sky. How can I help you? Good morning, replied the woman, visibly surprised by the warm reception. Actually, I'm looking for information about aviation. My son dreams of being a pilot, but we are of humble origin and I don't know if it's possible." "It is absolutely possible," Ashley gently interrupted. "In fact, we have a new scholarship program for young aviation talents. I can show you all the details and how your son can apply." What neither of them knew was that Eleanor was discreetly observing the scene from the other side of the hangar where she was for a follow-up meeting. Her serene smile illuminated her face as she saw that the transformation had been genuine and lasting. 6 months later, the story of Blue Sky became a case study in important business schools across the country. The joint program with Horizon Group had already trained teams from 12 other companies, and Tyler, now promoted to Inclusive Service Coordinator, frequently initiated his trainings with the phrase, "Let me tell you about the day I judged a book by its cover and almost lost the biggest opportunity of my life." In her office at Horizon Group, Eleanor kept a framed photograph on the wall, the image of Blue Sky employees gathered on the day of the delivery of the last jet of the fleet. Next to the photo, a simple phrase, "True presence needs no announcements." The impact of that visit to the hangar continued to spread like ripples in a lake. Other companies began implementing similar programs, inspired by the story that now circulated in American business circles. 1 year after the first meeting between Eleanor and Tyler, Blue Sky received a national award for innovation in inclusive practices. At the award ceremony, Richard invited Eleanor to come on stage with the entire team. "You are the true deserving recipient of this award," he said into the microphone. Eleanor, true to her style, took just 2 steps forward, smiled and replied, "The merit belongs to those who had the courage to change, to those who recognized the error and decided to grow through it." Transformation is never silent within us, it echoes in every decision we make afterward. As she left the stage under applause, she added quietly to Richard, "And please don't call me ma'am. I prefer Eleanor. We are all just people trying to do the best we can with the lessons that life gives us." Dear listeners, we hope that Eleanor Johnson's journey has touched your hearts and provoked reflections about the judgments we make based only on appearances. To continue this journey of transformative stories, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives about ordinary people who caused extraordinary impacts in the lives around them. Find this special selection by clicking on the link to your left. If the story of the silent presence awakened something in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Every day, we bring new American stories that explore the complexities of human relationships, the prejudices we silently face, and the transformations we can cause when we choose the path of respect and mutual understanding. How many Eleanors might you have judged in your own life? What lessons did this story awaken in you? Share your reflections in the comments. Your experience is valuable and can inspire other listeners to rethink their daily attitudes. Your participation builds our community and helps us select the next stories we'll bring to you. Remember, just like at Blue Sky, the greatest transformations begin with small gestures of respect. We eagerly await your participation, and we'll see you in the next story.